Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV D-Res. This is Neon, aka Tom Pratt, and joining me this week is Mr. Mike Phalin. Say hello, Mike.
Hey.
Mike is a longtime contributor to clownfishtv.com. Believe it or not, we actually have a website. You need to go to the website. Please go to the website. So Mike is also an avid toy collector, and we're going to be discussing the utter state of Hasbro. Hasbro's not what it once was, right? It's kind of a mess.
Its stock price is nowhere near where it used to be.
It just dropped. They got downgraded Wednesday. I think it dropped on Wednesday. Yep. And it's crazy. So we're going to talk about all this. Again, wherever you find this podcast, please, for the love of God, subscribe, whether it's, Spotify or Rumble, YouTube. Where else are we at? We're going to be on Amazon Music. We're on Apple, wherever it is. Please subscribe. Do us a favor. I'm going to let Mike introduce himself and talk about his toy collecting habit. I know he has one. I'm envious of his collection, and he's going to tell you what all he's into. So go ahead, Mike.
I've been collecting since I was about 4 years old. It's partially it partially started with my aunt. She started collecting for me Star Wars toys, the original Kenner, original trilogy toys. Like every time she'd find something, she would get it for me, and it just spiraled where I had nearly everything. And then it just became a thing where, like, if I was missing something from my collection, I had to have it. And then it kicked back up again when Kenner released the Power of the Force toys. I was like, well, now I can start it correctly. I won't be taking them out of the box. I'll be keeping them in there. And I had the walls of my rooms were just full of all the blister cards and everything. And then I started liking just how the toys were made. When McFarlane started McFarlane Toys, and that suddenly kicked up the quality of what toys would look like and what they could be. They weren't only for kids, but they were for what I was at the time was a teen. And then they just started pushing those boundaries of like being either bloodier or more detailed or more articulation, and just the engineering of it, which my real job, I am an engineer. So I just started loving just the way toys are made and what you could do with them. And before we knew it, the toy collecting business just took off in the 2000s when Geek Chic became the thing. And then everyone was making toys, and toys were getting so much different, so much better. And then something happened. Something happened within the past 5 years that just turned me off as a collector. And we'll get into one of the reasons why. It's mainly the company we're talking about. But I just love collectibles, the engineering that's put into them, the craft of making them. Things like the Proton Pack there. That's a glorified toy. Everything behind me is a toy. Yeah. And the way they look, the memories they bring back, there's just so much power in collectibles and in toys that you try to grasp onto that part of your childhood that you no longer have, and there's that little bit of magic left in that plastic that just does it. Just helps you not feel like you're slowly hurtling towards death.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean it's amazing what that can do. I almost feel like sometimes when I see, especially like a retro toy, I think of the scene in Ratatouille with the critic where he takes a bite of ratatouille and he's like transported back to being a little kid and the feelings associated with that. And I kind of get that with, it's nostalgia bait. I know it is, but a lot of these like really overpriced figures. I'm a sucker for like the Kenner style figures, like the reaction toys. And I see them on that card that could have existed in the 1980s. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm 8. I feel like I'm 8 years old again. Look at these things. I mean, we used to have, people don't realize, like back in the day, talking about Star Wars, we had entire aisles of Star Wars. Like you can look these pictures up. I know it's hard to believe, but listen to these old men. We had entire walls of Star Wars toys. And then on the end cap, they'd usually have like a diorama or something with like the AT-AT Walker and the Snow Speeder and stuff like that. And same with G.I. Joe. It was floor to ceiling with one toy line. And now like Star Wars is like this, in a Walmart. It's crazy. But yeah, I get that nostalgic feeling, going to toy shows. I mean, we're going to PowerCon again this year. We went last year. It was fantastic. And that's a con that is dedicated to just the love of toys. And there's so many smaller toy companies out there that are they're guys like us, that they grew up loving toys, and they know you get those warm fuzzies from that piece of plastic, and they cater to that collector market. And it's really awesome because now they're making their own stuff. And I do feel that in some ways, the independent toy companies love toys more than Hasbro, and Hasbro is the biggest toy company in the world. So let's talk about what's going on with Hasbro. Mike, I know you've been kind of covering it on the blog a little bit.
Yeah, not so much recently. I've kind of cut back a little bit mainly because the quality of Hasbro's merchandise is taking a huge nosedive since 2021. And one of the reasons is because in 2021, I believe it was August or November, they announced that they were going to go plastic free, or as much as possible.
Yeah.
With windowless packaging. Now, you're producing toys like Star Wars toys, Indiana Jones, that are made for collectors. They are at the collector's price range of $20 plus. You cannot see them, and the only representation of the figure on the front is a CGI. It's a rendered model. It's not the actual thing. You can't see the thing. It's not until you break the tape and open it up and ruin whatever value there was in opening up and seeing what it is. And both you and I have experienced the terrible, terrible paint jobs on Hasbro toys that they have now because they can hide it.
Yeah.
They can hide it from
yeah, and that's been my opinion anyway, that I think the reason that they hide the toys is because the quality is just not there. I know the D&D figures in particular were awful. They fell apart. I was pleasantly surprised. I picked up some of the Power Ranger Zords cheap at Ollie's, and I didn't even know if they were action figures, to be honest, because the packaging, it was like a VHS. I'm like, is this an action figure? Is this a statuette? Is this, I didn't even know what it was. Pleasantly surprised that the quality was decent. I didn't feel ripped off. I only paid $3.99 each. So I was like, okay, that's good. And I'm going to open these suckers up and display them because I only paid, $3 or $4 each. But yeah, I mean, I've got limited edition figures I bought. They're still in the box. I don't know if they're actually in the box. For all I know, it's a box of broken glass. I have no idea what's in the box.
You could talk to loss prevention at a Target, and they'll tell you that people will open up the boxes, take out the figure, and just throw something else in. They don't use any kind of special tape. It's just regular clear tape. They just put it back over, take it back. No one's going to be any the wiser.
So the thing that gets me about the packaging is that argument doesn't hold a lot of weight anyway, because there is recycled plastic. Like, you could put a window recycled plastic, and I'm like, no, you're obviously up to something. You're up to hiding the quality. That's got to be what it is, because I know other toy companies use plastics, and it's not about the environment. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of toys that are going to wind up in a freaking landfill because nobody's going to buy them, and you're worried about the environment for a piece of freaking, window like that. That's all it takes. I mean, like these guys here, these are my Beast Box toys. This is my Transformers replacement. But like, look at that. That's not a lot of plastic, right? You can just, and other than that, the box is pretty decent. But yeah, I mean, everybody else is using it. It's whatever.
The newer Transformers figures that they've been producing for the past maybe 2 years don't have any. They're still open. You can still see the figure. There's no plastic. Why not? I know it kind of sucks not having a protective covering over your premium action figure, but do something, or at least have a fold out. Or have a sleeve, or have a like a book cover opening or something. Anything is better than paying $25 to $30 and then never seeing it. I mean, NECA toys are roughly about the same price. Some of them are getting closer to $40. Yeah, but they still use plastic, and their packaging is immaculate, and their figures have some of the best paint jobs on the market right now, on just like a regular box store consumer market. And the build quality is not that great, but I'm gonna buy like the Creepshow figure that I reviewed for Clownfish. It's great. I think it was $35, but I can compare that to probably the last G.I. Joe figure I bought, Rondo, and he just looks like a plastic toy, and they're the same price. And yeah, you compare them to each other. Like, one has real craftsmanship in it. The other one just looks like a resin printed toy with some basic splashes of wash on there, and they just threw it out.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
You're going to need to work for my money now.
Well, because there are a lot of options, right? So I've got some props for those of you listening to the audio version. You're not going to. I'm going to try to describe them for you. All right. So this is a Legends Soundwave from about 3 or 4 years ago, right? Now for a $10 toy, he's pretty nice. I mean, he's got basically the stickers, and he's got fully painted laser beak, and again for a small. Let's see if I can get him out here without tripping over my stuff. I mean, I did feel ripped off. $10, right? Okay, this was like, I want to say three years ago. Fast forward to this year, and I picked up Hot Rod. He's really red. I mean, that's basically it. He's just a chunk of red plastic with a little bit of yellow. I mean, all of this should be gray and yellow if you want to go for the G1. You'd think they'd make his legs silver. They didn't bother. I mean, just a definite notice in a drop in the paint applications. I've noticed this with the new figures coming out, new Transformers coming out. Anyway, all the figures they're picking are just like one solid color. Like everybody's all excited. They're like, oh my God, we're finally getting this guy. It's like, yeah, like everybody's getting excited about the G2 Transformers. I'm like, yeah, because they're like one solid color. They're like Dayglow green or something. It's like, it's a really easy paint app. Why are you getting excited? And it's going to be like $55. I mean, seriously.
And they're starting to get into the Armada line too. And that's almost the same thing. That Optimus Prime is strictly red with, I think, silver pipes, and that's it. He doesn't have a bunch of color to him. And if they do Megatron, I think Megatron's almost solid gray
and green and purple, I think. Yeah, because the Armada, they were very chunky. That's actually my second favorite Transformers line. But these are knockoffs. These are Machine Boy. You can't see this. These are from China. Machine Boy toys. They are called Transformnaze 5. This guy here, he's not Jazz. He's Clancy. And his paint application, I swear to God, is better than Hot Rod's. This guy was $2. This is Ratchet. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not Ratchet. It's Dr. Moo.
All right.
And then we've got, my favorite here is it's not Optimus. He's Infinite Prime. And again, these look like they could be current year Hasbro figures, and these were like $2 each. I mean, it's pretty pathetic, right? I can't tell the difference between a Hasbro toy and a knockoff.
Who do we really blame for that? I mean, do we blame Takara Tomy or do we blame Hasbro?
The Takara toys are fine. I actually get the Takara toys, and they're fine. The paint applications are much better. I think Hasbro, my personal opinion is they got too close to the sun. They were chasing movie deals. They were chasing TV deals. They wanted to be a Disney. They wanted to be a media company, and toys were secondary. Toys were kind of like a chore. They had to produce toys, and they got burnt on a lot of properties too. I mean, we can go back. I think when the damage really started was Star Wars. Yep. They got burnt on Star Wars. Star Wars was their bread and butter for boys' toys for years. And even, during the Clone Wars, like when we had downtime between movies, those toys always sold. They always sold. Even the most ridiculous, stupid aliens, stupid looking droids, whatever, blocky, boxy, cartoony clone troopers, all that stuff sold. You never saw it on clearance. Fast forward to the day, you go to an Ollie's bargain outlet, and there are piles and piles and piles of Force Awakens and Last Jedi figures, and now Mandalorian figures. I was shocked. I went last week, and there was an end cap full of Mando figures. They can't give it away.
Yeah. Also, their distribution model right now sucks. The 40th anniversary Return of the Jedi figures, the 3.75 ones, I only ever find them at GameStop. They're not at Target. They're not at Walmart. And I live in a huge city where there's 10 Walmarts and 7 Targets all within 10 miles. And you go all around, they're like, oh, here's like 10 Landos and like 10 Ahsokas, but nothing else. And so you have to really dig to try to find the figures you want that are brand new or are supposed to be out, but you can't find them anywhere. And it's starting to be like that with the Transformers as well, like the movie figures. I had to travel all over the place just to find one Hot Rod. And then they still haven't put out a Megatron. And I don't even know if I'm going to keep collecting by the time they get around to the last few figures from the 86 movie line, because I can't find them anywhere. What's the point? But hell, I can find the Dungeons and Dragons movie figures, no problem. Michelle Rodriguez is warming all those pegs that could be used for something people want. A movie that people actually went to go see.
Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Did you see that stupid Nerf gun? That D&D Nerf gun? It was like a dragon that shot darts out of its mouth. God, it was horrible. Like, I mean, that's the thing too. I feel like with Hasbro, it's not just the toy quality, but like I don't think as a company they know who or what they are. They just keep mashing up these brands. Like, we've got a whole bunch of IP. We're basically Disney at this point. We're like the Disney of toys. We have a bunch of legacy IP, and we're just going to mash them up. We're going to put some Transformers and Magic the Gathering, and we're going to do freaking Star Wars potato heads, and those are kind of cool. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just constant My Little Pony, they're Transformers now too, or they're D&D now too. Okay, now we're gonna mash. It's like freaking Oreos now, right? Like all those weird ass flavors of Oreos. Okay, now we're gonna do D&D Nerf, or I'm surprised they haven't done like My Little Pony Twister or some crazy something like that. And they're doing it. Monopoly and all this other Twister for furries.
I can only imagine the smell of My Little Pony Twister at a BronyCon.
Oh God. Like DashCon, right? But I don't think they know what they are now. And I think honestly the death of Brian Goldner, I think really threw him for a loop, because one, nobody knew he was sick. So there was like no plan of succession at all. The guy had cancer, didn't tell anybody until like a week before he died. Hey, I've got cancer and I might not be here. But his whole thing was he was trying to set Hasbro on this path to be a media company. And then after he passes, all of a sudden now they're selling off E1, and now they're trying to divest themselves of this thing or that thing. And now they've got people in from Microsoft that are running it. They're like, okay, we're going to be a game company. That's what we are. We're going to be a video game. We're going to turn D&D into a shitty mobile app because we can, with a bunch of, in-app purchases. And then we're going to, we're really going to push Magic hard. But I don't think they care about toys. I think in all of this, like, to them, I think the toys are secondary now. It used to be they were a toy company first and foremost. Now the toys are secondary to becoming, fodder for games, fodder for movies. And now that whole thing's kind of blown up in their faces too, because they're not doing so hot, the movies. So, and their stock's taking a hit, and people are complaining about, Magic the Gathering. They're overproducing cards. People are finding cards in landfills, because that was their golden goose. And I personally just don't think they have the direction they need right now. They need somebody that actually has a passion for toys, and they just don't have it. They don't have it.
I think the collector's market is also swaying away from Star Wars and from Transformers. I don't think it's there. I think that collectible market has moved on to something else. I think they've also moved past NECA, and I think it's going back to being more specialized. Like, I don't even think Super 7, for as much as they churn out, I don't think anyone's interested in Thundercats anymore. I think finally our generation is no longer the generation to sell to. Which
go ahead.
I think it's gonna move on to whatever was really hot in the late 90s. I think that's going to be the next generation that they're going to pivot towards. So honestly, I think Star Wars as a brand is dead. I think G.I. Joe is also dead. It's just we're not spending the money right now. It's a terrible time to be a collector because everything is so expensive, and spending $30 for a figure that's going to sit on a shelf could easily buy one steak in Florida right now. So it's just that market, I think, is tanking, and the bigger companies that are chasing it, I think, are starting to realize that they're not going to make money off of making these $30-$40 figures. And that's also showing with the crowdfunding campaigns. The only ones that are really nailing it have to be something that a whole bunch of people can get behind. Like the sail barge, I was not surprised that thing succeeded. The hiss on Hasbro, on HasLab, I was surprised that did. Because when I think about the hiss, like, do I really want a hiss that's made for a 1/6 scale figure? But that blew past in like a couple days. The proton pack, I was also surprised that made it. But I think now collector's market is going to see a huge downturn, and the major companies will ditch it, but the smaller ones that made their money or make their living off of it will keep going. We'll see more from Todd McFarlane, more from NECA and Super 7. But I think all the big ones, even Mattel, if this Jurassic Park one fails, I don't think they're going to go back into it.
Yeah. It's Mattel's interesting too, because they were kind of trying to chase entertainment. Now we'll see how the Barbie movie does, but they've been like all over the place too. But no, that was actually my question. And I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was like, who are they going to market to next? Because the generation after us isn't really into toys like we were, you know. And I think that's one of the problems we're having too. With kids, I think the reason they were milking the collectors so hard is, like, I know my kids, they were not into action figures that much. My son was when he was little. He had Rescue Heroes. He was really into those, and the little Star Wars guys. And I think I forgot, Galactic Heroes. We had a bunch of those, and he liked those. But I think, that was one of those things where I think we bought them because I also liked them. So I got to play Star Wars, with him. But as he hit like 8, 9, 10 years old, he was already out of toys. Like he was on his iPad. He was playing video games. He just was not into the same stuff, we were into. But kids today have a lot more options too. I mean, they have infinite options. You have infinite options for entertainment. You don't have to make up your own stories in your head playing with your G.I. Joes in the sandbox, because video games, iPads, the internet.
You can scan your figure in with AR and use it for something.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just a different time. You mentioned G.I. Joe. I think, did I show you these before? I picked this up at
Yeah, Cam showed me those.
Yeah, look at this. So, funny story. I was gonna knock Aaron out of his chair, but he couldn't. Aaron Sparrow, he couldn't make it. But so these guys, this is an original carded Duke, and I've got a Dusty too. And a funny story. I found them in an antique mall, and you'll never believe what I paid for them. Actually, you would, because I think I told you. They were like $30 each.
That's just not bad.
No, it was a pretty good price. I mean, I had to haggle a little bit to get them down. No, actually what happened, I don't know what happened, because that particular vendor at that antique mall had a bunch of other 80s, 90s toys, and they were dead on with their pricing, like what they're going for on eBay. And these guys, the only thing I can think is they thought they were the reissues, the 25th anniversary, because that's about what the reissues are going for, is about $35 to $50. I'm like, that Duke is like Duke's worth a lot of money, but they weren't that. They were just like on the shelf. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. They got an extra 10% off too. So that was pretty cool. But no, I think what's going on now is, like, our generation, we are in a place right now where we can either buy back our childhoods and we can have the toys that we never had as kids. Like I finally can have that Voltron I always wanted. I never had the Volt, but I can buy them if I want them. And I've got them. And, or we're in a position where we can have those dream toys made, like the Unicron to scale, the $600 Unicron, or the big ass Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain, all these big, $500-$600 toys. These are things that we dreamed of as kids that we wish we could have. But I think once you buy back the parts of your childhood that are important, you don't really need anything else. If you're in it for nostalgia, and you're in it because it makes you feel like a kid again, and you want to buy, like, I only need to have a Soundwave. I only need to have, a couple of my favorite G.I. Joes. I don't need the whole damn collection. I want a couple of my favorite vehicles, a couple of my favorite characters, to display, maybe a nice version of them or something, or like these guys here, they're carded. And that's all I need. I mean, what am I going to do with, a stock room full of freaking toys. I just need enough, I guess, just to be able to get that hit of nostalgia, and then I'm good. I'm good. And that's kind of like I even told my wife, I'm like, I think with the Hasbro with Transformers, I think after the Armada, because I love Armada. Armada is like my second favorite line. After I grab those figures, I think I'm done. Like I can't really think of any. They've already released every character in versions better than we could have possibly had them or thought of having them as kids, especially the movie Transformers, because people don't remember the original movie Transformers were dog shit.
Yeah.
They were like the worst fucking Transformers. That started the decline of the whole freaking line when Hasbro decided to make its own Transformers and kind of, they had Takara engineer them, but you could tell they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Blur and you tell me that Takara really, really cared how close they were to the movie. They didn't care. So now that we got those like primo versions of these characters, we don't really need anything else. So if you're going to still collect toys, I feel like it's going to be, indie lines. It's going to be, and PowerCon again is fantastic because it made me aware of so many small companies. I didn't know they were out there, but they were producing kind of like artisanal action figures, small batches of figures that maybe feel like they could have been produced by Hasbro in 1985 or by Remco or something like that, so you kind of get your hit in nostalgia in a different way, but something new. But like, Hasbro's thing is they haven't created anything new in decades.
Yep.
They bought Power Rangers, right?
Now they have the Lightning line, which is their new premium Power Rangers line to compete with. Well, you can't really compete with Super 7's Ultimates. Ultimates are $55 a piece, and they're very detailed, very nicely put together for the most part. But Hasbro's are going to be the same windowless box, $25 a piece. It's just, how are you going to? I'd rather pay the $55 and have it in a nice display case with tons of accessories than pay for a box with a rendered version of the figure and never be able to display it. What's the point?
Yeah, I've got Sergeant Slaughter and from Classifieds, and I've never opened him. I think he's in the box. There's something in the box because I rattle it, but like I have it on the shelf next to my other boxed classified figures, and I'm like, I hope he's in the box. I don't know. Like I said, it could be a bag of glass, it could be a bunch of nails, it could be the fridge. I don't know what's in that box.
That's why Rondo was my last one, because they started putting Snake Eye in the box and a couple others just in the faceless box. I'm just like, no. They're on the wall to be displayed, not to just sit on a shelf like a book.
Yeah, and I think again they can hide a lot of defects, and when you're paying that kind of money for a collectible, you can spring for a little freaking plastic window, so at least it's in there. Or I love it was the NECA the Turtles toys where it was like a book and you'd open it up. My son collects the Godzillas, and it's like, oh, this is nice. You get that, you get the movie poster or something, then you open it up and you can still see the figure inside. You actually bought an action figure. And like I bought those Power Rangers toys, and I'm like, I never would pay. I think they retailed for $25. And I'm like, I would never pay $25 for these anyway. But beyond that, I couldn't even tell you what they were. I picked up the box. I'm like, I think they're action figures. But they also talk about how all the Zords combine into a Megazord. And I'm like, now I don't know, is this just a solid, like an action figure, or is it, part of a bigger figure?
Yeah.
Is it static figure, or is it transformable? I have no idea. But for $3.99, I'm going to give it a shot. And that's basically what, and it's ridiculous. It's nuts. I don't think toys are that important to them. I really don't.
No, and I'm trying to figure out why they're wasting. They were so concerned about not using plastics, but then they produced the retro Indiana Jones line that's on a card with plastic, and they created brand new figures in that style that are just sitting on the shelves and no one's buying. And that's about the same amount of plastic they would use in like a Black Series or the Lightning Series or whatever. So why are you investing so much money in Indiana Jones toys? No one's buying. No one cares about them. No one's going to pay $11 for what is really a crappy Indiana Jones figure. I bought one, and they didn't improve anything about it. What I always hated about those toys when I was young is they weren't rigid like the Star Wars figures were. The plastic that they used was very flexible. I had the German mechanic, and his legs over time just like looped because they were so soft and so easily pliable that he just like split in half. And they used the exact same plastic. So when I took Indy out, I almost tore his leg right out when I was just taking him out of the package. And I was like, oh, this is as crappy as I remember. You didn't improve anything at all. So I just tossed it.
Maybe that's why they put them in the retro packaging, because they know you're expecting shit quality. They know you're expecting an old looking action figure, but when you pay $25, $30 for a collector's item and the paint app doesn't match what's on the box,
it's missing the eyes,
it's freaking missing accessory. Okay, so that was the thing with Transformers. With you mentioned the movie line, the 86 Starscream. I heard multiple people tell me that the 86 Starscream was missing parts, missing fins, missing missiles. And again, you don't know what you're getting until you open the box. And there were reviews on Amazon for it. And people said, I thought I was buying a Hasbro Transformer. This is like some Alibaba shit. And they're like, no, this is the Hasbro Transformer. You bought the Hasbro Transformer. They're like, the paint on the eyes isn't even lined up right. Like nothing. It looks like it was spray painted. And they said, no, it's that is a current year Hasbro Transformer. And I'm so sorry that this is the way you found out about it. And, they're doing damage like to themselves, so many levels. It's like you have the collector's market. That's like the only thing you have going for you as far as toy sales. So let's go out of our way to like antagonize and piss these people off too. Like, I don't know if they care. I just don't. It just feels like they don't care.
They don't. I don't know what they have to fall back on, because even when Mattel screws up, they have two solid lines that are always going to carry them. They're going to have Barbie and they're going to have Hot Wheels. Yeah. When have you ever seen a Hot Wheels aisle ever shrink?
Never.
Even when I worked in retail in the 90s, it is still the same size in Target. The Target I used to work in, I still go to, and it's still the same. Nothing has changed. So, and same with Barbie. Barbie's still basically one whole aisle to herself. Those two lines never change, but everything else that is so strictly IP based fluctuates so much because a lot of people just stop caring. Eventually, I won't be surprised if Star Wars is totally out of stores, or it's just regular. It's just turned down to being just like the baby stuff or the young kid stuff. Yeah, because right now at Target, there's two pegs, one dedicated to 3.5 inch, one to Black Series, and then just a couple small parts on the lower shelves that are taken up either by plush Ewoks or plush Grogu's. There's no vehicles, there's nothing. And it's at every Target I've gone to basically research for this. It's sad. And if it goes out of the stores, I don't think anyone's going to care. I think that
nobody cares.
I think Star Wars has become so dead. I hate having to say that as a longtime fan, but it's just, I don't see anyone besides older people. Oh my God, I can't believe I got to call us that now. Older people in their 40s and 50s that care enough to actually spend money on it. But I mean, do you need 10 Landos? Regardless of which one it is, if it's Disguised Lando or Bespin Lando.
Right.
They're not selling. But you put one Luke up there, it's usually one Luke per case. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
I had to go buy the Mandalorian Luke, so I have a Luke to put on my skiff because I can't find the Return of the Jedi Luke anywhere.
God. Well, I should tell you there, what people are actually buying. And they just keep doubling down, I think, on product that collectors don't want, average consumers don't care about. I mean, I think Star Wars got a little bit of a bump from Grogu fever for about 2 years, but Hasbro, they blamed their dismal financials on Star Wars failing. I remember that was like 2018. They said the reason we came up short was we went all in on Star Wars and nobody bought it.
Right when Rise of Skywalker came out, their stock price was about 118. Immediately following, going right into the beginning of 2020 before COVID really happened, it dropped to 71.50.
Jeez.
And then none of that product moved. I know it didn't because I watched it. It's part of
Yeah.
my job. I watched it just not move. No one wanted it. You had so many characters that play nothing into the movie. Like you got 10 characters, a whole bunch of named characters. And like, I don't know who these people were. I can't remember them from the movie. I can hardly remember the movie. And then it's all in ollies now. Every single one of them is in ollies.
I thought was really weird with Rise of Skywalker. You could see the decline. Like when The Force Awakens came out, they had massive hype, and the toy aisles were as full as they were, because we had Toys R Us back then and everything. And it was just like, it was like the Phantom Menace all over again. It was like, boom, like all kinds of Star Wars stuff. This is great. Star Wars is back, baby. We got all these new toys. We got a new Falcon. It sucks, but hey, we got a new Falcon. We got some play sets. We got whatever. And then you could kind of see, okay, well, that stuff didn't sell very well. So when Solo came out, and The Last Jedi came out, you can see they kind of pulled back a little bit on the number of toys. And then by the time we got to The Rise of Skywalker, well, no, I'm sorry, we had a Rogue One in there too. And we got a pretty cool walker out of that. But that was like the end of the big play sets. And then by the time we got to The Rise of Skywalker, it was like a handful of the new characters, and some of the characters we knew were going to sell mixed in with original trilogy characters, and they were relegated to like an end cap. I remember they had like an end cap, and that was it. That was all the Star Wars. It was like, oh, there's some of those Dio whatever droids, but we also had Ewoks in there and R2D2 for good measure. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, you could just see it just go, and people weren't buying it. I mean, it sat there for weeks. Actually, what they were doing is they were picking out the R2D2s and the Ewoks, and they were buying those. My wife included. She bought, bought an Ewok. But the new characters, those Dios, they sat there for months, and they probably are at Ollie's now somewhere.
And after they saw that decline, they still tried to do 2 Kickstarters or 2 crowdfunding campaigns that utterly fell on their faces. The Rancor, when I was covering it for Clownfish, I thought it might get there, but then I saw what their stretch goals were, and I was like, this is garbage. You're charging, I think it was $300 for that thing, and you're not getting anything. You're getting a cardboard backdrop was their first thing, and then they tried to backpedal and be like, oh, we're going to throw in some figures we already released. We're going to give them to you for free. Oh man, then that failed. And then when the Riva lightsaber was announced, I was like, no one's going to buy this.
Nobody wanted that.
Like, why? I mean, you can buy any of the other Black Series lightsabers. They're much cheaper, and I'm still laughing when I go into Walmart and I see just pegs of Riva.
Yeah, I was shocked though, because now the lack of give a shit has reached characters that I thought would have sold. Again, when you've got piles of Grogu, which I guess you can kind of write off because they made so much Grogu stuff. But I went to Ollie's and I picked up a Jedi Luke Skywalker with an X-wing. This was the I forget what they're called. They're not Galactic Heroes, but they're like somewhere in between.
Yeah, the 2-inch tall figures.
Yeah, and they're pretty cute. I mean, they're cool. It's $25 set I got for $4.99. Okay, we had Luke Skywalker being sent to Ollie's. Okay, that is like hit the panic button, right? A Jedi Luke, like you said, you can normally never find a Jedi Luke. A Jedi Luke with an X-wing being sent to Ollie's for $4.99, and he was there for a while. I think he was there for a while because it looked like they just dumped a bunch of this Mando stuff there last month or whatever. And I was just like, I can't believe this. I mean, the last time I remember seeing any Lukes on clearance anywhere was when Star Wars was dying in the mid 80s. And I wish to God I had a time machine. I remember seeing rows of Stormtrooper Luke at KB Toys. And he was like $1.99 or something, and I didn't buy him because at that point I was already out of Star Wars. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. They finally got around to making a Stormtrooper Luke. That's weird. And that's all I thought. I didn't think about it. I'm like, my God, kid, go back and buy every single effing one of those figures off of that peg, and you sit on them for about 30 years.
But at least then Kenner was trying, because they were going to make another line that followed up that was a sequel to Jedi. So you had all these weird vehicles they were coming out with. Well, I still have all of them. They were great. They were just kit bashing stuff together and throwing it out there. Like, that's great fun, but toy companies aren't going to take that risk anymore.
Well, I think that's where we're kind of at now with the crowdfunding. I kind of feel that for those legacy brands, if it's not little kid stuff, that they might just say, hey, going forward, everything is a la carte. Everything is being made to order, and we're gonna crowdfund it. And if it doesn't work, then we just don't make it. I mean, why take the risk? Why dump millions of dollars into a product that's going to wind up in Ollie's? Other than a tax write-off.
Yeah. If they did another Falcon, like they did with that 2008 Falcon, the big one that lots of detail, if they made it even bigger, and even if they charged $300 to $400 for it, it would get backed.
Yeah. As
long as you didn't stick stupid stuff in there. If you didn't say, oh, well, this is the version from The Force Awakens or whatever with the stupid dish or whatever. If you make it even bigger and you charge people out the ass for it, they'll buy something that's OT, but nothing else. But when it comes to the Hasbro lab stuff, I have my own issues, and it's sitting right there. That I backed it on the first day. There were a lot of promises made. Even Adam Savage, when he reviewed it, there were promises made during that video that when it arrived, I was so let down. I had to put a special chip in this thing to have it run for more than 90 seconds. It's made with a built-in timer to shut off at 90 seconds. So if you're wearing this at a con, you got to start and start it at every 90 seconds. What's the point? So you actually have to go and mod this thing. And if I wanted to mod it to look like an 84 pack, I've got to do so much modification work just to the aesthetics. I got to take all the stuff off that they originally told us was going to be easily removable to make an 84 pack. Right. But it's not. There's stuff that's just hard molded on there from Afterlife. And there's issues with the hose connection, and just for $400. Yeah, it was $399, I believe. For that price, there were just so many little things that they cheaped out on. And when I reached out to Hasbro, I was like, you promised us we would get these chrome etched stickers so we can have a brand new 84 looking pack. What you sent us was a cheap printed at home bunch of stickers. They were kind of blurry. They weren't chrome at all. They're like, oh yeah, well, we made some promises and some things had to change. Sorry. You gonna fix it? Never heard back.
They got your money.
Thanks for the money.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, shareholders are very happy with your money. So I think they are kind of cheaping out on that kind of stuff. I'm starting to wonder now, are these companies and Mattel too? Are they crowdfunding to stay afloat? We're gonna get as much money from, because you start mathing it out and you're realizing these campaigns are millions of dollars. It's so we take that, and normally we'd spend $120 or something to make this $400 item, but we're going to spend $30, make some piece of shit. As long as they get something, and we tried, that's okay. We're just going to pocket more of that cash because God knows we need it. I don't know.
Mattel's trying it with that Jurassic Park gate. $299 for a motorized gate that comes with a version of the Ford Explorer that they've already released. They just added a couple more details to it. Yeah. So you're paying for a gate. You gotta have 5,000 backers at $299 a pop. That's a huge chunk of change for a motorized gate. Something that you would have seen come out in '93.
Yeah.
It's nothing special. It's nothing detailed. It's not. I really don't get it. I don't get where this. I don't know if it's the cost to put it together. It can't be research and development because it's just a gate. It's just a motorized piece of plastic.
I know the tooling's expensive. I know, but like you said, they're reusing parts. And doesn't it come with an electrocuted kid too? It comes with.
You have to. I think that's 7,000 backers.
Okay,
you'll get that, and you'll get electrified Tim. But at 10,000 backers, you get Lex and a goat. If it reaches 10,000, you get a tiny figure and a goat.
And a goat, don't they have the goat leg too, or something?
The goat's leg is removable. It's
that's
not a selling point for me when your highest tier is $3 worth of plastic.
Yeah. I don't know. It's that's kind of a mixed bag. And Mattel, that's a whole nother issue we're going to talk, I think, about in another episode. But I think with Hasbro, beyond the Star Wars issues, beyond the issues with the collectors, can we talk about where they're at with their politics? Because I think that is another issue. Hasbro, look, they've been pretty heavy-handed with the left-wing politics. I mean, we've got non-binary Transformers now having a little speech in the new show, which I thought was really freaking weird. Like, look, back in the 80s in the Marvel Comics, the Transformers did not have genders. There's a whole issue I remember as a kid with the Pretenders trying to explain to this alien chick who was hot for, I think it was Cloudburst, and she was hot for him. And he's like, yeah, I'm a robot. Like, I don't have a dick or anything, so this isn't going to work out. But fast forward to current year, and we've got a show on Nickelodeon where it's like, hey, yeah, let's have a 2-minute conversation about proper pronoun usage for Transformers. And I'm like, it's a little weird. So I got to wonder if and this is hardly the first example. And then you get into Wizards of the Coast and they get very political too. And that's a whole nother issue. But like, are parents looking at this? Oh, then we had the potato head thing. Let's not forget about the potato head thing. So our parents looking at this and being like, yeah, we're just not going to buy Hasbro toys because I don't know what we're supporting. Frankly, I don't know what we're supporting. Kids aren't into it. And I'm watching these shows and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And we're not going to buy Hasbro.
Oddly enough,
just a theory.
I haven't encountered the political stuff as a parent. I live in Florida, so we all know what's going on in Florida right now.
Yeah.
But as far as the toys go and kid shows, thankfully my kid more likes just watching people play Five Nights at Freddy's on YouTube right now. Yeah. So I think I've escaped that whole socio-political discussion I have to have with children's television. But they're courting a market that I don't think exists for their product. Yeah, it's not to be harsh on people that identify this way, but they make up such a tiny part of that customer base. I don't know why they chase it so hard, especially when toys and entertainment is supposed to be escapism. I don't want to feel like I'm watching Twitter being injected into everything I have to deal with. I don't want it in my games. I don't want it in my entertainment. I leave Twitter for Twitter.
Yeah, right.
And that's where it should stay.
So, I mean, here's an example of it, kind of the Twitter mentality creeping into the real world when it comes to Hasbro. And this is beyond Wizards of the Coast. That is a whole nother issue, right? One of the weirdest video clips I have seen in relation to Hasbro was actually, I think it was Geeks and Gamers had it. And it was a convention where they were talking about G.I. Joe. And it was the audience mostly 40, 50 something year old men. And the marketing lady from Hasbro would not let them speak to the toy designers until they gave their pronouns. I kid you not. Like, I thought they were overreacting. I thought it was a joke. I watched the clip. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, most of these guys are probably military and they're probably thinking to themselves like, bitch, please, what does it look like I am?
Why do I have to qualify myself to ask a question?
Right. You weren't allowed to ask a question of the designers until you went through Hasbro's gatekeeper and she was going to, ask what your pronouns were. And I thought that was really freaking weird. And I'm like, look, if you're courting another audience, I can tell you in the G.I. Joe classified room, they're not here. That audience you're looking for, they're definitely not in this audience. So I don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, if you just, what the deal is. But I think she was some millennial marketing gal. And I was like, God, talk about being tone deaf. I mean, seriously.
My pronouns are Yo Joe, bitch.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was like, I fell on my chair. I was like, God, this is. And then we had the guy who worked at Hasbro who came out and said that, they definitely have gone all in on, agenda and all that. And I don't know if it's just, the employees that they're hiring. Like, we said before, if they're looking for new markets, they're thinking, hey there, fellow kids, we're going to use all the Twitter terminology. And this is how we're going to get these broke 22-year-old baristas to buy our toys, because I'm like, it doesn't even, like, the logic doesn't even make sense. Like, the people you're courting, a lot of them, they have no desire to have children, right? I don't think a lot of them can afford children. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be that guy, but seriously. And you're going to chase that audience and chase off the parents, the collectors, the people with the disposable income. I just don't understand the logic. I really don't understand what's going on over there.
If you want to court that audience, totally go ahead, but do it with something brand new. Create something from the ground up where it doesn't feel like you're injecting it or you're pandering to these people. Create something that they can latch onto that is organic. I don't know how you would do that when it comes to identity. I really don't know what IP you create that's going to hit a home run for an audience that is perpetually angry about everything. You can't make something that for people that are going to be offended if you include something or if you don't include something. You either have to hit every single check mark, but if you hit one check mark too many, they're gonna light you on fire on social media, and you'll fire somebody over it, over a barn fire that lasted 1 week. You're gonna ruin someone's career.
They tried selling Steven Universe toys. This wasn't Hasbro. This was actually, I think, McFarlane. McFarlane tried selling Steven Universe toys. They had like Lego sets, and there were some action figures and little blind bags and stuff like that. And they were on clearance within a couple of months because that audience, I mean, we can argue whether or not the show was popular. It definitely has a fan base, very vocal fan base, but they're not people who buy toys, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it's at cons, you see plenty of people dressing up for them at cons, but I don't know what you would create for them. I mean, you can make action figures, but it's not really a show where you're going to be smashing. Well, maybe you're trying to fuse the figures together.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's just a weird, because again, this comes back to like Hasbro. They haven't really made anything new. I'm thinking Beyblade, maybe. Is that Hasbro? That was,
how long ago was that?
That was, like it used to be. Remember back in the, like, it was a good time to be a kid. Back in the 80s.
Visionaries and Mask
and a lot of them failed. Air Raiders. Remember Air Raiders?
Oh, yeah.
But they tried new things. They were always trying to innovate because, again, their business was to sell toys. And they realized, like, hey, G.I. Joe's getting a little long in the tooth. We got to have a backup. Transformers not selling as well as they were a couple of years ago. What's next? And now it's just like, no, we're just going to keep going back to the same well over and over and over and over again. We're just going to make the toys more expensive year after year after year after year, and these chuds are going to buy them. They're going to bitch about it online, but they're still going to come back and they're going to buy them until they don't. And then you start to see the toy sales decline, and you start to see the stock decline, and people just kind of get fed up with it. And then they're like, okay, that's fine. We've got Wizards of the Coast, we've got Magic the Gathering and D&D. Oh yeah, hey, we just pissed all those people off too. With the OGL debacle, which we've talked about at length. And also, send in the fucking Pinkertons to a guy's house because he got a case of cards early. That didn't go over very well. And that's the audience they're courting. I hate to break it to you, but that progressive audience, they really don't like the Pinkertons. Not a good look for you, Hasbro. So they're getting it from all sides now. And I'm like, at what point do they just farm everything out? They're already doing it with basic fun, like all the reissue My Little Ponies. My wife was collecting; she can't really afford to collect them now. The gem dolls from Integrity Toys.
Yep,
they were like $150 to $200 a piece, and it's like, it was fine when they had a couple, and now there's like it's like nobody can afford these damn dolls. But it seems like they are outsourcing a lot of their classic IP to other toy companies that actually want to make toys. Again, all the classic ponies, they were doing Strawberry Shortcake for a while. How long? Super 7's doing G.I. Joe. I mean, they're not great, but they're doing G.I. Joe. So at what point does Hasbro say, fine, we own all these IPs, we're going to be a license holder or whatever? They want to make toys. They want to stick their necks out, and they want to get, they want to take a risk and try to figure out the market that we lost track of. They can go for it. We'll just sit back and we'll license you G.I. Joe. We'll license you Transformers. You want to do My Little Pony? Cool. You can do My Little Pony. Just send us a check and we don't have to deal with it.
I can see Super 7 filling the void for a lot of these IPs if they were to take their Ultimates line and basically cut the production cost in half. Bring them down to $20, $30. Don't include as many Don't include soft goods. Don't include as many accessories, but just make a solid product. Just make a solid figure that can be displayed. And I think that would solve the problem with both Transformers, maybe not for actual transforming Transformers, but articulated Transformers like they did with their Ultimates line. I mean, I bought my brother the Optimus Prime figure, and he was amazed by it. I was like, oh, it came with a surfboard. It's like, yeah, it's odd, but I mean, it's something that Hasbro wasn't trying to do. Hasbro wasn't trying to chase that, like, oh yeah, these G1 fans really want to see him like with a basketball, but Super 7 will do that. Yeah. But if Super 7 could cut down their production costs a little bit so people aren't like, their eyes aren't bulging out of their heads when they see their $55 figures. Right. They could nail that collectible market, and they only produce the toys for most of them, the toys that are sold. They don't flood the market with them because they can't afford to. They're still a relatively small company. Yeah. So if they went that line and they did that with G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Star Wars, I think we could have another collector's renaissance, and I think we would see a lot better Star Wars figures, ones that people actually wanted. I would pay $55 for Han, Luke, and Leia done in the Ultimates line. I would pay that much if they did them in the Nelvana Christmas special style.
Yeah,
I would love to have those.
Yeah, that would be cool. That's one thing I liked about the GI Joes was they had these cartoon versions of the characters, and it was really cool to see because Hasbro and occasionally they'd throw us a bone here and there, but for the most part they didn't really care about the really obscure characters. But like Super 7's like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, that guy that was in that one episode of that miniseries for like 30 seconds, yeah, he gets a figure.
Well, they'll throw in accessories that were only for one episode, but we still can't get a hooded Cobra Commander. That's still
no. My understanding is that from the top down, it's too dicey to do hooded Cobra Commander. Freaking bizarre. I mean, it's just bizarre. It's like it's blue. The hood is blue.
And he's evil.
He's a bad guy.
He's not a good guy.
He's not a good guy.
Let your villains be villains. Not every villain needs a redemption story. Let Cobra Commander be a loser, but an evil loser.
I don't know. I don't get it. But I think a lot of collectors are looking for alternatives. I mean, I brought these up before. This is my Transformer replacement or Beast Box toys. I'm showing one right now, but they're basically animals that turn into blocks, but they're really detailed and they're just really cool to look at. And I've been picking these up and my kids have been buying them for me. I just love them. I mean, it looks like something that they would have done in the 80s or 90s, to try to, and you just don't see this kind of like, look, they know Transformers fans are going to be about this. They're going to get that market, but it's also something new. And I think that's what we're going to see more of from the independent companies is, it feels familiar. It feels like it could have existed back then. Or it's adjacent to something you're already collecting, but it's not just like, we're not just making knockoff Transformers or something.
Or dig into the obscure lines. Like they tried to bring Battle Beast back years ago, but do it again.
So guys,
try something obscure, try Visionaries again. Anything. Was it Inhumans? What was that?
Inhumanoids. Yeah, Inhumanoids.
Yeah.
That I would look if they did HasLab, if they did the actual Inhumanoids, if they did like a freaking Decompose, it was like 3 foot tall or something. I'd buy it. I would. My wife might disagree, but I would pay $300 to $400 for a heavily articulated Decompose. He was like one of my all-time favorite action figures, and I wish to God I never sold him, but we needed money. When we first got married, we had like massive collections, and I had everything from when I was a kid, and I sold Decompose, but he was this giant like skeleton thing, and you put the action figures inside his rib cage, and it felt a little gushy and stuff. But yeah, they were like innovating back then. Like they had guys that would just sit around and be like, come up with some ideas, come up with these crazy ideas. You look at like, on Mattel's side, like how He-Man was created. They have a graphic novel coming out about how they created He-Man. All the ideas they come up with, and that's what they used to do. They used to, Hasbro used to have think tanks. You watch the Toys That Made Us, and you see the stories about how they literally would be tasked with coming up with new toy lines, constantly coming up with new stuff. And there isn't that. Like Hasbro needs to have Imagineers or something, working there, coming up with new ideas. But I don't think they care. I really don't think they care.
And so many of the unique toy lines that we see now are so gimmick based. I mean, more so in the 80s, they were heavily gimmick based.
Oh, yeah,
Everything had a gimmick. But right now, there's so many disposable toys that are being produced by everyone, not just Mattel and Hasbro. But everyone's making them like for the longest time, Target had this line of poop dolls or poop figures.
Yeah, they did.
And then they had those skeletons that you'd have to chip out of the little blocks of sand. It's like they're great, but you kind of just make them and then you don't do anything with them. You don't have a series to go with them. You don't have a story to tell with them. You're just throwing ideas out there and just hoping they stick or stick around long enough to sell out, and then you can just kind of write the rest off. There's no one's trying to build a brand with the toy first anymore.
No, and that was kind of Mattel and Hasbro's thing back in the 80s. And for all the complaining people do about TV shows based on toys, they're just giant toy commercials. We're still going to see Transformers movies. We're still talking about He-Man. My Little Pony is still somewhat popular, right? Those brands are still around because they become larger than just a toy brand. They become, again, story-based characters. These characters have lasted for decades because they had stories. If they were just robots that turned into cars and there was no story and you weren't invested in the Autobots and the Decepticons, I don't think Transformers would be around. It's like nobody'd care.
It would be like what happened with Diaclone in the late 70s and early 80s. It was the same as Transformers. It was made by Takara Tomy. But Diaclones faded out of existence, even though they were the superior toy, and they're coming back now as reimagined.
Yeah, they're cool.
The couple that I still have, they're great, but there was nothing to go along with them. There was no story to put that seed in a kid's mind to build and want to collect more of them and actually have that play time and having adventures with them, which I think it's totally devoid because we have so much to choose from.
Yeah.
What is really left for imagination?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big problem. So I think that's a good place to wrap up. So tell everybody where they can find you, Mike. Tell us what you're collecting first, and then tell people where they can find you.
Right now, I'm collecting obscure model kits. Like you can see, I got Hal behind me. He was a model kit. I'm currently building a Japanese-made Mach 5, which is better than the Polar Lights ones that came out. Basically, model kits. I've got almost all of Polar Lights' Batman up there on the Batman 66 line up there. Model kits right now are the thing because I can make them my own. I can add all my washes. I can do all the artistic stuff I want to them. That's where my collecting is right now, something that I can make my own. You can find me at Clownfish TV and at piratesandprincesses.net, or you can go to sixcents.com, SYXXSENSE.com, and that's where I am.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Again, this is Neon from Clownfish TV. And please subscribe wherever you found this. God knows we need the subscribers on the audio side of things. So do that. If you want more commentary, leave a comment. Tell us what kind of podcast you'd like to see. Again, we want to have longer conversations talking about pop culture. And that includes everything. That's, we're talking toys, comics, movies, video games, role-playing games, any kind of nerd shit you can think of. We want to talk about it here. So let us know what you're looking for. If you'd like us to have anybody on, let us know. We'll see what we can do. All right. Hey, thank you very much, Mike, for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.